how to cut out, load, and edit a pattern template into a Brothers scan and cut machine. Hi, today I'm going to be showing you how I used my scan and cut machine to draw out my templates and cut out my templates for my bunnies. So I've been making a lot of plush animals from the furs that I take in, and I've been drawing them all out by hand and cutting them out by hand, and that is extremely time consuming. So what I did do was I scanned in the templates, and I'll show you how I did that. And once it was all scanned in, I was able to then store it in the memory, store it on the website, and whenever I need to make a bunny or a bear or whatever plush animal I'm making, all I have to do is recall the files and cut them. So I could either store them on the internet or I could store them in my machine. Alright, so let's get started. So one of the things that I do is I take my low tack adhesive mat and I pair it up with my muslin template, or my muslin fabric that I use for the templates. I cut them to a 12 by 12 inch square and I lay it down on the mat. I usually start at the lower edge closest to me, and because I cut a perfect 12 by 12, it's going to fit directly inside the mat perfectly. Now as I continue to cut, I'm eventually going to have to clean off the mat because the stickiness is going to start to become less tacky. But for now, this is still pretty tacky. And if the tackiness disappears, you could always use a repositionable spray. I use something called Easy Tack, and it's repositionable adhesive. And I usually bring it outside and I just lightly spray it and I let it dry up a little bit, and it brings back the tackiness, so it extends the life of your mat, especially if you use your mat a lot. So when I know that I'm going to be cutting a lot of templates, I cut a ton of 12 by 12 squares, so I have enough. Now I do have the longer mat that's 12 by 24 inches long. I use that on occasion. I do find that I use less fabric that way, but sometimes it's just easier to go with the 12 by 12. To get my perfect 12 by 12, I use my ruler, and it's the Quilt in the Day square up ruler, and I square it up to the 12-inch mark. You could use any ruler really, but I like this one because this one is pretty precise. So I loaded in the design onto my scan and cut machine, and I labeled everything on the online program. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to change my blade. Let me pull this out a little bit. With my marking pen, and I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to select my design, and I am going to draw the design, and I already told the machine what parts I want to be drawn. And the reason why I did it this way is because instead of handwriting and hand drawing all the directions or the directional information onto, or drawing it by hand, it's just so much easier to do it this way. A little bit more time consuming, but it's definitely, for me, a time saver in the long run. So here it is, it's just drawing out the outline of the outside. And in the software, I dedicated this part here on the outside as a cut file as well as a draw file. These dots here, the arrows, the directional arrows, are only a draw file, so it will not cut those out. Also, very important when you are dealing with fabrics that have a nap that's moving in one direction, or a fabric that has a pattern to it. And in my case, when I'm doing the fur animals, I need to know what direction the fur is going in, so that's really important. I also labeled what part of the leg this is. This would be the inner part of the bunny's leg. And notice there is quite a bit of fabric that I'm not going to be using. It's just part of the waste product. Unfortunately, it's part of making and crafting. But I will save some of the scraps and use them for inside of bedding sometimes. So it comes out looking like this, and it is absolutely perfect. Alright, so now that it finished drawing out my template, I'm now going to change. I'm going to remove the pen, and I like to use the roller blade. It's kind of like a little mini rotary cutter for fabric, and I think it cuts it out beautifully. And I've been using it quite a bit, and I haven't had to replace it yet, so that's a plus. So now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go to cut. And start. When it first starts, it will measure how thick the fabric is, because it's got the automatic roller blade here, and it will slowly go around and cut it all out, and it gives you an approximate amount of time on the screen. It says it'll take now approximately 3 minutes before it's finished. Okay, now that it's finished, I'm going to come up to here, and I am going to hit this button. I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to hit this button right here, and it will release the mat. And now we're going to remove the pieces. So when I'm removing my fabric, I like to start at the corner edge, and I use my little spatula to do that. So I come under, and I just pull this off. And because I'm using the low tack, it's really not sticking that much to the mat itself. Now I have 4 bunnies to make, so I've been recreating the same pattern 3 times already. This is the 4th time. So I'm going to take my inner leg and my inner leg, and I'm going to match them up, because I know when I go to do them later, they must be together. And my outer leg and my outer leg. Now that it's starting to get a little sticky, well, it's losing a little bit of its stickiness, I'm just going to use my spatula, and I'm going to push some of the edge of the muslin, and I push it off to the side. And it's really not a lot, but enough to make it less sticky. And I've been using this mat now. I've cut probably about 15, maybe 16 different sheets. You just take that off. And that's just to get rid of some of the bigger pieces. Now I'm going to take my spray bottle, and I'm going to spray it a little bit on top. That's just plain water. take the baby wipe, and we all know that we use a baby wipe that doesn't have any alcohol on it, nothing that has aloe or things that will cause it not to stick. And I like to make little circles, and I work in one quadrant at a time or one corner at a time. And it's not going to come out perfect, but you could see that it does pick up some of the color. And it will also pick up any of those loose threads that you missed when I went to scrape it, or that I missed when I went to scrape it off earlier. Once it gets kind of icky, I just fold it over, move to a clean spot, and start again. Now, I'm not looking for perfection because I still have a lot of cutting to do. So I just want the tackiness to come back so the fabric will adhere better to the mat, because when I pull the muslin off, the edge of the muslin, because it's not really a tightly woven fabric, it's very loose, as I pull it up, some of those pieces still remain behind. And it will cause the mat to be less sticky. So I'm just going to leave this here for a couple of minutes, let it dry. And then I'm going to move on. So this is the Canvas workspace, and I'm going to go to my projects page, and I'm going to open up my projects. Down here at the bottom is a teddy bear, and then I have a lot of files for a very large project that I did with cars, and I scanned in all the individual pages. And here is even more of the project, the car project, license plates and lettering. It was a very, very large project, but I kept all the files because who knows if I'm going to do it again. The project itself consisted of over 365 pieces, and to cut that out by hand would have been crazy. So I'm keeping the files in. This is another bear, and then up here is my bunny. So we were just looking at the feet. I'm now going to move over to the next one, and I'm going to click on this little box over here. This is the bunny's body. So my bunny's body has black markings and red markings. The red markings are only drawing only files. The black lines are cut and draw lines. So that's important to me because when I load it into the scan and cut, when it goes to draw, it's going to draw this part, this part, this part, this part, this part, and then it will go around and draw the outline. When it goes to cut, it will not cut anything in red, it will only cut what's in black. And that's important for me to distinguish between what's going to be drawn out and what's going to be cut out. So how do I go about doing that? Well, it's very easy to label your pattern. You're going to go over to text. It's right down here from the left side. You can pick any text that you want. I'm just going to take the first one that's on top. Grab the corner. You can pull the corner out to make it bigger or push it in to make it smaller. I'm going to make it smaller for now. I'm going to double click on the inside and I'm going to get rid of the word text and I'm going to put in bunny. Now right now it's going to be considered a cut file. Well, I don't want bunny to be cut. I want bunny to be drawn out. So what I'm going to do is I am going to right click in the box, and I'm going to drag my pointer all the way down to properties and click on the properties. It will open the property box. Right now, this box right here is a cut and draw. I don't want it to cut and draw. I just want it to draw. So I'm going to click on the draw line, and I'm going to come up to the color, and I am going to change it to any color. It doesn't matter what color it is, but for me, I'm going to put in red so I know what it is. If I make it smaller, I can make it larger. It works great. Now, if I wanted the word bunny in there, I would just put it in there and it would write out the word bunny. But I don't really want it in there, so I'm going to remove it. I just wanted to show you how I do that. I'm going to delete that. If I come here to the black line, the outline is a cut and draw line, but not the inside. You can also change the dash pattern from solid to all these different dashes, whatever you would like. I just always leave it solid. Now, from here, once you've made all your changes, I'm going to come over here and get rid of the text box because I don't need it anymore. And I know that there are basic shapes in here. You could add shapes into your design if you wish. You could put borders in there if you wanted to. Not that I would need to. These are patterns. But they also have logos, lots and lots of different logos. So, just know that you have lots of options. So from here, I'm going to either leave it alone, or I'm going to change it to a different pattern. Now, how do I do that? Well, there's two ways. I can go up to Project, and I can overwrite the project, but it will keep the same name. Or I can come over to this box, save as another project. If you do not name it something else, it will put random letters and numbers together to give it a file name. So if you're going to save it as something else, make sure that you change the name of the file. I'm not going to do either one of those because I don't intend to change this. What I do want to do is come over to download, because now I'm going to put it into my scan and cut. But before I do that, I always want to make sure that my file is saved to my PC. Wherever you put it, whatever file system you have, you could put it in your thumb drive as well, but always make sure that you have a copy. From here, I'm going to transfer it to my scan and cut. Press the button. It will automatically send it to my scan and cut. And I'm going to show you how to retrieve it from the scan and cut. But if you decide to save it directly into the scan and cut, not just taking it from the cloud, you're going to save it as a numbered file versus a Word file. So you might have to make a cross-reference of the number file name and the actual letter file name, so this way you know which pattern is which, if you can't see, because sometimes when we cut out patterns, they're so tiny that you might not be able to see it without enlarging the pattern. Alright, so let's go over to the scan and cut and let's continue. So I am finished with these feet. I don't need them anymore. So I'm going to click to the home screen. I'm going to click OK because now it's going to delete those patterns. I don't need those patterns anymore. But it is already saved in my scan and cut machine. Like I said, it's always good to have a backup. But I am going to retrieve my data, and I'm not going to retrieve it from a thumb drive, although if I had deleted it from my computer, I would take it from my thumb drive. If it was saved in the scan and cut itself, I would come here, but I am coming from here. It's already in the cloud. And this is what I love about the DX machine. It works great. So now my file is back up. All I have to do, I'm going to press OK because I don't need to make any adjustments because I made those adjustments on the computer. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to select. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to want it to draw out first. So I'm going to hit the draw. But I have to load in my mat. I have to load up my mat itself because I let it dry a little bit, and then I can continue the process. So what I have on the inside of my tray is a 3D printed holder, and it just holds my little markers here. And these are the markers that come with the scan and cut, and you can see that there are different colors. Some are air soluble, some are water soluble, some don't disappear at all, so you have to be cognizant of what you're using. So this side really here is for the for just the markers, and this side, years ago, the older version had a special little tube that you could keep the blades in there. And here's my extra rotary blade, and it doesn't fit in here, so I put it on this side. Still works pretty good. On this side, I have all my other blades. A good thing to do also is to label which one that you are using. Once the mat is in, I'm going to take out the blade that's already there and put in the marking pen, and I continue. So what do I do next? Well, I'm going to come over here. I already have it on draw, so I'm going to go from drawer to start. I have the brown marking pen in just because the material that I'm going to be using is a brown fur, so it will match. And then we just repeat the process until they are all completed. If you found this helpful at all, please let me know in the comments. Come visit us at dinahsquilts.com.